Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNerdSneed on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
Columbia down the way.
Nice. And the sound effects you've heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, Agent_70 on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads.
What's up, everybody? Co-hosting from the Borough of Kings, where we've been known to bum rush a person or five.
Brooklyn's in the house.
Indeed. And you can find this here podcast on the Coastal of the Podcast Network, that's ESPN.us.
Do it today.
You could also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network SoundCloud page.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. Vroom. You can also find us recording mostly every Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, on the YouTube channel of the Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/the Kliq Nation, which I thought had a problem for a second, and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so that you know when we are on live.
So folks, yeah, another week, another set of things going on for this here show. I was going to say, hey, you know what? Sometimes you have to start clean in order to get things back in order. But I didn't want to have to do that the way I wanted to do that coming out of last year. And I'm talking about with PC issues, but we're not going to talk about that right now. But we are going to get into discussion on Marvel's Echo, which the whole 5 episode season just dropped this past Tuesday, and yeah, we'll talk about what we thought about it. We're not going to go through every single show because it's kind of a thing to do all in one fell swoop.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's 5 episodes. They are on the longer side. They're not 20-something minutes. They are on the 30+ or 40+ minute side in terms of length. But this 5 episode series dropped just the other day. We have to give people some time to watch it and further to digest it, because there are some interesting plot points and story points that are made, that are expressed in the series. And maybe we'll be more at liberty to talk about it next week, because that will have given some more people time to watch it, and we'll probably still have to ring the spoiler bell, but we won't be as limited in what we would think about saying.
Right. And I was going to say, like if we were doing a treasure edition on the show, which I'm not sure this warrants it, we probably would have gone a little bit more in depth on each episode.
Right.
So there is that. That being said, overall, well, I guess just start with the end. Overall impressions of the show for you before we dig in.
I liked it, except for the ending. I thought the ending was the weakest part of the show. I like the characters. I like the actors that they brought in to play some of these characters. Spoiler alert, I'm a big fan of Biscuits. I thought Biscuits was hysterical. The fact that they let somebody running around named Biscuits, I thought that was pretty good. I think that the actor who plays Maya Lopez, her name escapes me. I should know it because I know I read it and saw it a bunch of times already.
Alaqua Cox,
right? She is very good at being expressive with her face, because obviously she really, she's deaf, and not, she's not mute, but she definitely doesn't speak. So she has to do more with the other forms of expression that she has, and so she has a very good way of expressing both intensity and other varying emotions, and and it's a credit to her. So I really like what she does. There are I think, and I'll hand it off to you on your thoughts, there are a couple of interesting MCUifications that we may see in the comics based off of this show, this rendition of Echo. I don't know. I have not really followed the character, but it'd be interesting to see what they choose to adapt.
So I'm going to say one. I did enjoy the show for the most part. The couple of characters that I ended up enjoying were Chula and Scully, who were the more senior co-stars of the joint. But also to go on Agent 70's point about Alakwa Cox and having to do more without actually speaking. There is that, and I do enjoy the fact that along with her and the other co-stars who played against her, who I guess learned or already knew sign language, kind of it worked well, and they still, the intensity of their interactions was still there while they were signing with her, and in some cases talking while doing so, and everything was still there. So I that part was pretty great. There was a thing I was going to mention, which we talked about last week, in that, and I don't know if you tried this or not, Agent 70, but they said that they had dubbed I presumed the whole series in the Choctaw language.
Choctaw language.
Choctaw language.
Yeah. I did not try it.
So I tried a little bit in the first episode just to see what it sounded like. And in fact, I almost, because I wanted to do it and then go back to when a certain character comes into play, of which, most people would probably guess if they have been keeping up with the character and coming out of Hawkeye, to see if they did anything like that. But when I went to another, when I was watching another episode, I did not see the language show up. Because in the first language, it was like first when you changed the change languages. But in the couple of others that I saw, when I thought about it later on, I did not see those options there then. So I don't know if that was a thing that they just did for the first episode, or they did do it for the whole thing, and I'm just not seeing it for some reason. Because I went through the whole list of the ones of what they had out there for
the options, right?
Yeah, and I didn't see them. So
okay.
But I thought they said, I could have sworn they said they did the whole thing.
Exactly. I think they said, I think what we were reporting from our secondary sources was that they did it for all of the episodes. So, obviously we're not going to double check it now, right. But after we record, after this show, we'll probably both have a chance to take a look at the episodes again.
Right. But that being said, the reason why I wanted it, because I wanted to see how the voice acting against specifically a certain character was going to be up against the English version.
Right, but there's what's funny is that I wonder what they would have done with a particular joke if they would have translated it. I mean, buy the damn thing, buy the damn.
I doubt it. I don't know if they would have. Well, they probably would have still did it, because just so they would have to cut in.
Right.
But yeah, but they wouldn't have changed it. So they
I did find myself laughing.
Right.
I thought it's pretty good.
Yeah, matter of fact, go ahead and bring that part up. Well, I mean, if you want to bring that part up about certain things that you found amusing in the show.
Oh, I mean, buy the damn thing.
Yeah.
I consistently found biscuits amusing. Um, let's see. Um, the references to 80s music because of the 80s and 90s
Yes.
music because of the kind of a central social hub
Mm-hmm.
in this particular Oklahoma town. That's a spoiler alert.
Yeah.
That's a mild spoilers. A lot of this happens in Oklahoma. And one of the central parts of their town is, let's just say, I don't want to say a relic, but it's ultimately something that seems a little bit more antiquated to me than than maybe to them.
Yeah.
But
No, it kind
ultimately,
of is.
yeah, ultimately though they still kind of flock to it, and it's kind of a social center of the town.
Right. Because it's a smaller town.
Right.
And so they, and the place like that, yeah, would probably be a place where people would be because of the fact that it's a smaller town. But yeah, I would probably, as much as I hate to say it, I would probably go so far as to call it a relic because let's face it, I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure places like that still exist.
Sure.
I have not seen one. In fact, the couple that were around here have not been around for quite some time.
Right.
So, there is, I mean, bowling alleys also, which is not the place we're talking about. They're still around, but they're still kind of an era. But that's also kind of different because there's things behind that. Regardless, though, so the baddest thing, the character that speaks that line, like I said, he's, like as I told, the age of 70, he's kind of one of those people who's like, it's like, oh yeah, that guy, you seeing him in some stuff, and you kind of know, like I know that dude from Defiance, which is an old sci-fi TV show, but I know he's
Mhm.
also been in stuff like Dances with Wolves and or not Dance, maybe Dances with Wolves, something like. But he's been doing a lot of shit.
Right.
So to see him, it was like, okay, you were going to get a treat one way or the other. And then Chula, I feel like I've seen her somewhere, but I don't know if that's the case.
Oh yeah, she's definitely been around. I've seen
Right,
her.
right. So it's like, all right, so we're clearly going to get some capital A, some capital A acting going on in this piece. So that's why they were kind of my favorites. I did like Biscuits, but also at the same time, it's like he just kind of reminded me of a kind of a Zach Galifianakis.
A little, but it was so wacky because like why are they why is the steering on that side of the truck?
Right, here in the States. Right.
Right. What on earth? So anyway, like that's the mildest spoiler because you just will not understand why that truck exists.
Actually, you do, I think, because I had to go back and check, but I think there are certain vehicles that are in the States that do have that, and those are mail trucks. And I thought at first that's what that was, but that is an actual truck that I think they might be using as one, and that's why I thought it was like that. But I'm not entirely sure if that's what. Like I said, I have to go back and look.
You could be right because that is in fact the like the side gig or the gig of one of the characters. So.
Right. So that's what I was thinking, because I thought about that at first too, but then I was like, oh wait, there's someone on the side of the truck, and I thought it was kind of along those lines, so that might be why.
Mm-hmm.
So, but all in all, I still think it was a solid show. I kind of am curious of the fact, because we can speculate all day long about why did they decide to put all of the episodes out as opposed to piecing them out like they do some of the quote unquote slightly bigger characters. Even will still, like, we know this whole spotlight thing is a new endeavor, but not really a new endeavor because it's pretty much the same as all the old Netflix shows,
right?
Which they did again do week to week. So some would argue it could be because, well, maybe not. They didn't have much confidence of it. I don't know if that still washes these days. I mean, in this context anymore, because they definitely, it was a choice one way or the other. But because we know, especially coming out of What If, they did a whole event, a week and a half event out of that, and Loki came out week to week.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say what's what? Regardless, It is out there, and
I
for
choose not
people's
to think
reviews.
about, I just want to look at the quality of it, and I
Right.
think it was fine. I think it was mostly good, like I said, except for the ending. Um, I wanted to mention one thing. We talked about the MCUification, the possible MCUification of the comic book character going forward, but we talked about this in our pre-production meeting, and it hasn't come up yet in our conversation on the air, but we reported a story that I believe was from the point of view of either the showrunner or the director. I can't, don't quote me directly, but as I recall, someone mentioned that they wanted to revamp Echo's powers because her original power set from the comic books was, I may be misquoting here, but lame. And they give her some forms of power that Roddykat speculates is likely uh, Infinity Stone / Gem based, and we find that there's some energy-ish power, but ultimately it is a play on her comic book code name, right? Or is related to it in a sense. And I saw that coming a mile away, and I talked to Roddykat about it, and he sort of he sort of saw it coming, but I it was one of those times when I wish I had someone to bet with, like, hey, I bet you this is what's going to happen, and I would have won that one. Like first episode, I was just like, oh, I know what's coming.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. So, to kind of get into that just a little bit, I'm still of the mind that it is not a. So they did change some things because uh, Echo's lineage was not Choctaw. In fact, her dad was Cheyenne, and her mom was Latina. But they changed that.
Right.
If I'm gonna start, they definitely changed that for this story. And as far as her power set is concerned, in the comic books as of right now, she is still the holder of the Phoenix Force. Now that is still an X-Men thing, and we are not there in the MCU. So my speculation is that one, they wanted to try to get her not necessarily there, but at the very least an increase in the power set, much like they did with Shang-Chi, to where that would be I think Agent 70, you said this a while back when we were talking about Shang-Chi, like kind of bring her up just a little bit more in power status, in the MCU, as opposed to what she just has. Because as you said in the before the show, she's kind of basically Taskmaster,
Right.
which what she is. So I guess to kind of give her something a little different to go on, but also to kind of sort of go the lengths to try to parallel a power set that she has now in the comic books, because we know that is a thing that they kind of been doing, much whether we want them to or not.
Right.
So that said, I think that is probably why. And yeah, and as far as how that all manifests itself, which there's parts of it we're not going to talk about because this is still fresh for people. As I told Agent 70, I am still looking towards a particular What If season 2 episode,
right,
as a parallel to them, why they did what they did. In fact,
right,
it might even tie up in a way that we don't know.
Yeah, right, exactly. That we don't know yet.
Right.
What's interesting is that I wonder if this is laying the groundwork for post Phoenix Echo in the comics.
That is a possibility.
Right?
Right.
Because we know that the Phoenix power doesn't stay
right
with whoever's holding it. So ultimately, I wonder if that might be like a remnant of the Phoenix power that Echo holds on to.
or some echo of the
Right,
of the powers.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. The potential is always there. So, but like I said, right now we don't know. We're just kind of going off of what we have. I'm actually was sitting here still looking back on older show notes to see if I could find that article that we were talking about, but I don't know if I will because I don't know how far back it was, and I don't want to go too far, too much farther back.
Right.
That being said, though, yeah, like I enjoyed the show. The ending of it, I just kind of wrote it off as being like, all right, well, all the world's at the end of the world, and they kind of wanted to get it to what we see in the post credits,
right?
And they had to get
glad
there
they
somewhere.
mentioned it before we signed off on our comments on this. Is that there is in fact a post credit scene in the last episode?
Yes, and it's dealing with a we'll just go ahead and call him the main antagonist of this series. But because you think about it, they couldn't do the same thing they did with Hawkeye. They already did that, you know. And if they had like, okay, so where is this going to go for whatever they're going to set up with this whole street level thing that they're clearly doing with the whole Marvel Spotlight thing, you know?
Right.
And from what we found out in the post-credit screen, to not just give anything away, there is some there's a comic facing thing that gets teased out of that I'm kind of sort of looking forward to, honestly, and actually still kind of reverberates in the comics at this point. Whether the similar things that happen in the comics is going to happen in this part of the MCU, don't know. But like I said, it's kind of interesting, and it kind of goes back to I guess the one other article that I think I saw that I told Agent 7 that I don't think we talked about a character being akin to a certain big bad in the MCU of these street level characters.
No, I don't recall that.
Yeah. I'll remind you after the show, but
okay.
Either way, we can kind of push on from there. Like I said, I think it's a good watch. You know, the decision for them to put it all out there all at one time might have been the best one for it. Who's to say? You know, sure. I mean, people are going to watch it how they watch it regardless.
Right. Like I said, I choose not to focus on that. I know that, you know, that has elements of marketing and elements of trying to stay in the zeitgeist and this, that, and the other thing. I get it. You know, I know those are all factors in determining whether or not you want to do the all at once drop or the week by week drop. I get that. So, you know, I will let other people debate that point. I'm just happy that the show was actually, you know, good and I think worth the watch, other than like a, you know, like I said, like a somewhat weak ending. But you know, bottom line is I would say watch it, and I think that the acting will surprise you.
Yeah, the shows flow fairly well. Like me personally have not found myself wondering when is this going to end type situations. And as we talked about earlier, like, yeah, they are a little bit on the long side, but they also kind of, just as with other shows, Marvel shows have done, the timing of the show kind of goes down from the originals. Like, obviously the first one kind of has a bunch of setup, so that gives a good bit of time, and from there it just kind of fluctuates, but still kind of goes down in length. So, but like I said, still an enjoyable time. Whether I would come back and watch it again at some point, maybe somewhere down the line, who's to say? But you know, it at this point, I'm like, well, okay, so what are we going to do with this character now in the MCU? You know, if anything, and I hope they do have something good because it's a great character, you know. But we'll see what happens there. That being said, Agent 70 wanted to talk a little bit about last week's Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which I did not get a chance to check out yet.
Right. We definitely would have spoken about it had Roddykat been able to watch last week's episode. I will not spoil it because there's definitely some stuff that I could quickly spoil, and Roddykat would be very annoyed. I would not want to be in his shoes were that to happen. So I will say that I'm looking forward to this. They're calling it a season now. I don't think they have put out word of a renewal, but they are calling it a season finale that would be released as of this recording tomorrow. So it's it's something that I am eagerly awaiting to see. I want to see how they wrap up this season of Monarch. I think that they've done an exemplary job and a surprising job, but still exemplary, of creating a very character-driven story and still sprinkling in some Titan/monster stuff. But I think the story of the characters is really compelling. I really have enjoyed it, and getting to this point, I think, is a triumph for the showrunners, for the idea people behind this show. Obviously done hand in hand with the actors and other creatives on it, because they really done a good job of telling the other side of the monster stories, which is the part that a lot of people never want to see. People want to see monsters duke it out. People honestly, it's probably a good percentage of every Godzilla movie audience is just there to see the monsters fight and let them fight,
Right.
So, a lot of people don't care for the human side of the stories, but if you watched Godzilla -1, you know that a good human story helps Godzilla or kaiju movie go a long way. So I'm looking forward to finishing it. I know Roddykat is looking forward to catching up on the last episode, on the penultimate episode, and now this last episode.
Yeah.
And I'll just say that I'm also looking forward to seeing the finale of Reacher. It drops today, so we'll have a few things to just chit chat about next week.
Sure. Sure. Oh, sorry. I was curious about something, so I went to check on the thing whether. Oh yeah. Uh-oh. So for anyone interested, speaking of Godzilla related material, I went to see if Godzilla -0 is still in the theaters.
-1.
Excuse me. -1. And yes,
it is.
From what I'm seeing here from Fandango, until Sunday.
Which is a full month.
Mm-hmm.
That's a full month. More, that is.
Right. So if anyone like myself who has been curious about it or is still wanted to see it while it's in the theaters, you have this weekend as of this recording, if you're watching us live, because this recording usually doesn't come out until Saturday or Sunday.
I hope people make the time to go see Godzilla -1 in the theaters. It's worth it.
Yeah, and what sparked me to that was what you were saying about people wanting to see the human side of a Godzilla movie being compelling, and I know that is another example of that being the case, as Monarch has actually been compelling for the human side, surprisingly. So, that being said, we are going to get into the books of the week, starting off with Rise of the Powers of X #1.
Rise of the Powers of X #1 is written by Kieran Gillen, with art by R.B. Silva, colors by David Curiel, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowell. So, this is the other side of the coin, the other half of the Fall of X storyline that is, basically front and center right now in the X corner of the Marvel Universe. So, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? We had Fall of
Last
House
week.
of X.
That was last week.
Was it last?
Mhm.
Fall of the House of X, and now we have the rise of the Powers of 10, right? So this is more plays on the original Hickman companion books. In this issue, in this first issue of this series, we have what happens literally 10 years into the future, at least one version of it. And you have to remember that this storytelling mechanism that they're employing in both that first story that that Hickman put out, Hoxpox, and now this story, all work off of a particular story conceit, which is not time travel, but kind of jumping in between various timelines and various outcomes that are available and possible because of a certain power that heretofore had been unknown, right? Was only discovered in the pages of Hoxpox to be held by a certain character who we did not know was actually a mutant. That is important to remember because that is central to the story that is being told here, that has been, kind of woven through some of the other fall of and rise of books here, because Charles Xavier is planning to do something. And this is probably the one ding I have against this particular book, because when I saw what the plan was to try to win or try to undo a lot of the bad things that have happened, all I could say is, and this is a minor spoiler, and Roddykat's doing the motion, is, Chuck, I didn't say this out loud, but all I said to myself, like in my head, was, oh, not baby Hitler. you know?
Yeah.
So, and Roddykat and I had this discussion in our pre-production meeting, and he was inclined to agree, but otherwise, I really enjoyed this issue. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I did as well. This is the pox to the Hoxpox, to the ending phase of the Hoxpox, as a
Right.
like. I guess I can't call it rocks because there's a P there, but regardless, the interesting part,
Ropox.
yeah,
Ropox.
basically,
Rise
yeah.
of the Rotpox.
Pops, yeah, right.
Ropox.
Shout out to Pop Rocks, but
Oh.
but yeah. So the side of this that we did not see too much of during the whole course of the Krakoan era was the jumping of timelines. We saw it here and there, sparingly, but it wasn't a thing that came up like as a big thing up until, from Hoxpox until I guess now, to speak. And now that we know kind of who was behind stuff, which I guess was the link we did not see in Hoxpox, and getting to another thing that we still, I don't think we have seen yet, but has been kind of alluded to a couple of times. I suspect that in Hickman family fashion, like, yeah, you saw this coming, but you didn't fully realize to what extent it was going to play out. And in this case, going back to what Agent said about a certain formerly unknown mutant, I feel like I need to go back and read last week's book, because I feel like they said something about that kind of might have been a retcon to a retcon on that particular thing, but I'm not sure. I might be wrong, or I may be thinking of the big bad around, which definitely was a thing. That was the. In any case, all of that'll play out. This particular issue was quite interesting for a few different things, because let's just say we see an X-Men type mission with a team of X-Men. And if you are versed in the way certain missions tend to go in the X universe, this was definitely one of those missions.
Right.
For extent. And of course, in true Hickman fashion, filled with a lot of exposition on, the here's and the what fors, and the and linking of things together that was like, okay, so that's where that comes in type situation. So if you're really not up on the Krakoan era, much less it's probably especially up into and including Sins of Sinister, you might get lost on some of this stuff. And me being somewhat versed in some of that, in reading of some of this was like, wait, what? Huh? When did this? What? Oh, wait, that must have happened.
I think that it helps to clarify what actually happened in Sins of Sinister, especially for someone like me who read most of it, but not all of it.
Right.
So it was always the Sins of Sinister was always a little tricky to put the pieces together without reading every single page. So I know I skipped a few things, nothing major, but obviously if everything is required reading, it makes it very difficult to keep up with. So
but as you said, that was the case because like you said, that because you even going into that and coming out of that, I was like, what is this for? And like you said, this kind of clarifies a lot of why that happened.
Right. So I will say that this was a strong issue. It just, there was a couple of small things that really kept it from being a clear Kliq of the Week candidate for me.
Yeah, it's also funny for me, real quick before we end up, is that how it is borrowing from other parts, or at least I'm thinking is borrowing from other parts of the Marvel universe, because a certain construct, or it's like two different constructs made from other parts of the MCU was brought up here. I was like, those are interesting uses for those two things, and we get another version of the fastball special, or should I say the phase ball special.
Yeah, right.
Which I got a kick out of. But yeah, going into it, like Agent 70 said, it was like, okay, this is ultimately how they're going to get out of all of this. Because as I said, Agent 70, and he kind of agreed on, I was like, well, how else were they going to come out for this? There wasn't a good way that I could think of, but I'm not a writer of comic books, so
right. At the end of the day, you think, well, this is how they get. It's almost like the same way going in is kind of how they have to go out. Mm-hmm. So that's one way to look at it. All right, I think we can move on to the next book. I think.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Ultimate Spider-Man #1. So Ultimate Spider-Man #1 is written by Brian Michael Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's written by Jonathan Hickman this time around.
I see what you did there.
With art by Marco Cacchetto, colors by Matthew Wilson, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. So when we were talking earlier about how you needed to have read most of, if not all of, Sins of Sinister to make sense of what's happening, or just make sense of the storyline. But having read parts of it or most of it and being unclear, reading Fall of and now Rise of kind of help clarify some points, right? Ultimate Spider-Man #1 kind of helps to clarify what Hickman's spin on this version of the Ultimate Universe might be, because it was pretty clear in the Ultimates miniseries what the makers' plan was. But to see how Hickman is envisioning reconstructing a version of the Marvel Universe in the wake of the maker trying to keep it from happening again, more baby Hitler stuff, right? It's just a different, things are bound to happen just in a different way, and that's kind of the fun part to the story. Hopefully, is seeing how things happen anyway, just in a different way. And that's what we get here. We get basically a mini origin of Spider-Man that's definitely not the way you remember it. It's definitely not the original Ultimate Spider-Man origin, nor is it the 616. It's definitely something that is coming out of that maker storyline. And if you didn't read that part, it's important to know that they do explain most of that here.
Right. It is definitely an interesting play on of what has happened before, because this is not the first time we've seen a thing. It was like, oh well, or it could have happened. Basically, we used to see this kind of things in a what if,
Right.
but the way what ifs were written, they would still end up in a lot of cases go back into what you would kind of know, just not in the exact same way, in a roundabout way, basically.
Right.
So, or at a at a different length of time or something like that. But regardless, so I guess shout out to the Von Glum, because I'm gonna read his quote here real quick. Reading Ultimate Spider-Man was a nice cleanse from reading this week's X books. I like this version of JJJ, and I enjoy his relationship with Penn and Peter. I love that Peter's life is happy and successful, which, yeah, I kind of agree with, because as I said,
it is right. Go ahead.
Yeah, as I told you, as we were talking earlier before the show, yeah, you see a definitely different, as I say, kinder and slightly gentler J. Jonah Jameson in this particular version of Ultimate Spider-Man.
Right. It's fun. I you know what? This is definitely a candidate for Kliq of the Week for me, because of, there are some real nice notes that Hickman hits with the variations on this particularly common theme between all of the different Spider-Men, right? Or Spider-Men, right?
Right.
And, we bring back some concepts, we tweak some concepts, and update some concepts. But one of the cool things that just hit a very, like a warm, soft, fuzzy side of my, of my view of a particular set of characters was seeing MJ, Mary Jane, and Peter interact. Like, just it was just very, it was. I just really liked the way they were written, and it kind of brought back good, kind of like a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's obviously what a lot of people are looking for. I know that that's, some things that, people didn't want to deal with at Marvel at a certain time period. But hey, that's what the Ultimate Universe is for, I guess, now.
Or any such variation therein. But I'm saying it like this. For now, it seems as though Hickman does not hate the characters being together.
Right.
For now.
Right.
And because, yeah. Because even in the what the heck? Even in the 616, like, and not to go too hard on them, there aren't too many couples together, one, or in the very same places they were, originally announced, or whatever the case may be. And the only ones that are, or the younger one that is, rather, I should say, is, okay, there's got to be more than them. Regardless, Ultimate Spider-Man is a strong start. I still say it kind of makes me want to go back and, heaven forbid, read the old Ultimates books, specifically the Spider-Man one. It is, I think that one was purported to be a little bit more gritty, because we know Ultimates was kind of a little bit more gritty than the original
right.
Avengers Origin and whatnot. This one, not so, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Right.
But it also lends curiosity to saying, well, okay, where is he going to go with this? Like, this is the first, like, not to be, because we know this is Hickman, and I can't remember the last Hickman book that wasn't tied to, that wasn't going to end up being some sort of event that we was tied to,
right?
Being a thing. So maybe it's just him kind of like, no, I've already done the big budget stuff. Like, I've done my stuff for Hawksbox and whatever. And this is me just having fun, just selling stories. Just so happens to be in this universe, which could very well be the case.
Could be. We'll see.
Or he could be leading to something we don't know about it. There was always that thing. That being said, though, the next book we're going to talk about is, speaking of, Avengers #9.
Avengers #9 is written by Jed MacKay, with art by Francisco Monterino, with colors by Federico Blee, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. Yet I think I'll hand off most of the commentary on this book to Roddykat. What I will say, though, is that we have in this issue a particularly bloodthirsty Vision. And two, I wanted to mention that it took a while, but I guess, McKay is really leaning into a little bit of not necessarily a tactical or strategic vacuum on this version of the Avengers, because there's plenty of that to go around. It's really more along the lines of who's calling the play. And because the person's calling the plays, right? Because there is kind of a leadership structure to this team where, a lot of times we get spoiled and we're like, well, Cap calls the play and everyone follows. And, sometimes people throw suggestions at Cap and Cap will be like, yeah, you know what? That's a good idea. And then switch it up. Right. But everyone knows that Cap is calling the plays. In this case, I think that this harkens back to some of the other Avengers stories in history where other characters are adjusting to and making changes on the fly to the way things work when they are in that chairperson seat. So that's really my one observation from this kind of recent story arc. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you, because there is definitely an air of, okay, we're not doing this way. And you've seen it in the animated versions of it also, because it's like, all right, well, this is working or this is not working, so we're going to flip it up here. And yeah, I agree with you there. Now, whether that's going to be a continuous thing or that was just for this team of pretty much evenly matched adversaries, who's to say? But it's usually kind of fun when they play with it a little bit when that happens. In this particular case, I guess it still is like that. And like Agent 70 said, kind of going back to the bloodthirsty Vision. Yeah, Vision was totally not having anything in this particular. He was not with the shits in this particular issue, and it was kind of like, okay, are they going to play on that, or are we just going to let that just be a thing for for this arc right now? Because it's like it's not outside the realm of his character, but usually when something like that happens, there's usually something that comes along with it later. And from what we know from another book that is soon to be ending, I'm kind of wondering if it's going to play into that, and that could just me wanting that, and it might not be even the case of that. And there may be some seeds in here that are not even being sowed on that front that I'm wishing upon it. But we pretty much just get, hey, it's the Avengers versus the Twilight Code / I forgot the other. I forgot that quickly. The Twilight Code is the current group, but the Black Order, excuse me. I almost called it the Black Order earlier because like that it's technically almost another set of them, but not really. And the team going up against them with this, and like I said, things happening. I do love the couple of things that happened in the course of this, like such as the ship, excuse me, the city, giving props to Sam and T'Challa. Mm-hmm. And also like the interaction with Tony and whatever the name of the person he was fighting up until T'Challa was like, hey, let's switch this up. I'm tired of this dude. And then at the end where they're like, hey, remember that this is all because of this dude,
right?
Which is like, oh right, yeah, that was a thing. To what extent? Again, I guess that's what we're working up to, but sure, that's where we are right now. I enjoyed this issue.
One final thought.
Mm-hmm.
If you have anything to add, just give hold on to that for a second. There's one thing, I was just flipping through the issue, and there's a funny part where Falcon's like, let me show you why they used to call me the Falcon. I'm like,
I knew you were going to hit on that. Yeah.
We all kind of still call you that. Yeah.
I don't, but yeah, but
Well,
I know that's out there.
Falcap because he's got wings.
Right.
You know, he's the Captain America with wings. He's Falcap. You know. So I'm like, seriously, there. You know.
Believe me, when I saw that, I thought about you. I was like, yeah, he's gonna have fun with that one.
Like they used to call me the Falcon. Yeah. Okay. Sam.
But yeah, that, like I said, a pretty solid issue for what it is. Like we're just trying to see where this thing is going, where Jim McKay's steering this thing. So yeah. Next up, and I guess finally for the books that we have in common, is Sensational She-Hulk number 4. Whoops. There we go.
Yep. Sensational She-Hulk 4 is written by Rainbow Roll with art by Ig Guara, colors by D. Cuniff, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna, our favorite lettering paisan. So this is a little bit of a slice of life issue. We're talking about slice of life before, and in the context of anime, but this is, in a sense, a very much a slice of life issue in the day, basically a day or a few days in the life of the Sensational She-Hulk in the wake of, bad things happening to her with Anathema. Oh, God, stupid character name. And her cousin Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk, coming into the pages of this book over the last, in the last issue, causing some havoc in She-Hulk's life. So this issue deals with some of the ramifications of it, and also some downtime, which I liked. The downtime, which involves some more character interactions beyond just some of the supporting characters we've seen thus far in the pages of the She-Hulk books that Rainbow Roll has written, now including Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, more on the Hellcat part in a bit, and now including Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, in the mix. So interestingly, you wonder if they bring Carol in because, she's obviously a lot more prominent now. We're coming off the Marvels movie, but it's interesting because they bring her in as a counterpoint to Patsy.
Right.
And we all have groups of friends like this where there's kind of one extreme and then the other extreme, and you find yourself in the middle. And that's where She-Hulk kind of is.
Right. Yeah, well, while Carol's the more practical one, Patsy in this context is a little bit more of the wild spirit. So, right. But as tends to happen with superhero downtime stories, it doesn't stay that way for long. And I'm just
not wrong at all.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say that if they had gone to the Jarvis line, this probably wouldn't have happened. But excuse me, but there was also a little side thing in the beginning where with Jack of Hearts, when Patsy kind of comes into play, and she's like basically coming in to kind of get Jen out of her doldrums, whatever the case may be, and invites folks out. But Jack's still kind of in a place where he doesn't really want to be widely known as he was back in the day, or I say that with air quotes because let's face it, it is Jack of Hearts, but
more infamous than anything.
Yes, but he basically kind of wanted to keep it on the low still for around now because he was gun shy, for I guess good reasons, and even without knowing, as far as I remember, he still doesn't know about the one last part of his when he went out the last time. Which they kind of tease around here in the course of the story. So yeah, so there's that whole thing with Jen and him, in addition to what is going on outside of that they kind of touch on. And I guess that's going to go somewhere. And as much as Agent 70 probably doesn't like the character, yeah, that whole Anathema thing is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, sucks.
But we got a nice little diversion in this story. So I guess we got some time until that shows back up again. So, so She-Hulk, solid book continuously. So, also there was a I don't know if you saw it, Agent 70. There was one little note from this book that in the beginning, Jen was meeting with a client whom I'm not entirely sure who that person was, but they were talking about the Defenders.
Oh, you don't know who that is?
I do not, because I didn't really read the Defenders like that.
It's time to break out the good old hot moo.
So he mentioned something about children's underwear as in terms of merchandise, and I laughed at that because those of a certain vintage remembers Underoos.
Of course.
Which was exactly that, the underwear for kids that had, and actually now adults because it's still around, that had superheroes on it. Specifically, well, no, they had DC stuff too, but it was mostly like Marvel and DC stuff.
Sure.
So I got a kick out of it because it was like, okay, that was a nice little touch for the old folks. But then I forgot, I think Underoos actually is still around, but I can't imagine too many people, investing in such at this point. But yeah, so some stuff like that was kind of nice touches that this book puts in.
I was gonna say there's no need to, because nowadays you can get T-shirts and like outerwear.
Oh yeah, that's also true.
Need, to have it under anything.
Right. I mean, hell, they got pajamas with cap shields on it.
Right. So, but in any event, all right. So I think that covers the 4 books that we had in common, right?
That is.
All righty, it's time to open up the mags on the minigun and go into rapid fire.
I ain't got time to breathe.
Rapid fire reviews. First up is Titans Beast World number 4 of 6. It's written by Tom Taylor with art by Lucas Meyer, colors by Romulo Fajardo, and letters by Wes Abbott. So, if you've been keeping up with my commentary and quickie reviews on this Titans Beast World miniseries as the main book in this event over at DC, you've noticed a trend and something that I'm sure is very clear in Tom Taylor's mind. I know this is definitely something that they are doing to help boost the notoriety of Amanda Waller. I know that she's becoming far more prominent in the DC universe right now. Obviously some characters go through cycles. She's been prominent before, but she's basically taking center stage now. And there's some unfortunate real world political allegories and parallels that are being drawn in the pages of this book as well. But there's some really tough tough moments in this particular issue. This is the 4th issue of 6, and we'll see how this mini series wraps and how this little mini event ends. Next up is Captain Marvel number 4. This is written by Alyssa Wong with art by Jan Bazaldua, colors by Brian Valenza and Carlos Lopez. Letters are by VC's Ariana Mar. This is actually a pretty fun story to read because we have Carol with the new character that was introduced in this book in the first issue. Oh my goodness, what is her name? Is it Jun or Yun? I think it's Yun. I have to double check and circle back to that. But we have her as the stand-in for the Rick Jones type because they've introduced or reintroduced the concept of negabands, swapping out Captain Marvel in place of another character. And in this case, this character is a thief of magical artifacts that brings in Doctor Strange and Clea, that is. And, this is now the 2nd issue that relates to this whole kind of tying in Clea and Doctor Strange. It's fun. It's interesting. It's definitely a different direction because of the concept of the negabands being associated with Carol. as opposed to, she's never really had much interaction with them before, at least to my knowledge. So, I'm willing to keep giving it a try. I like this new character whose name unfortunately escapes me right now. It's probably because it's a little later at night now, but I will be circling back to that in a moment just to see if I can't quickly see what this character's name is. Yuna, not Yun, it's a Yuna. So wasn't too far off. Next, and I think last up for me, is Sentry number 2. It's written by Jason Liu with art by Luigi Zagaria and David Cutler, that is. Colors by Arthur Hesley and letters by our favorite lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. If you're not familiar with how they're trying to do a different take on the Sentry right now, they've basically split up his powers amongst a bunch of different people, but there's one person who's really up to no good who's trying to consolidate. And that is the gist of the first 2 issues. It's interesting to see some of these characters that they're introducing and seemingly doing away with, but we don't know if that's permanent given the nature of these powers and how some things just aren't permanent, like death in the Marvel Universe. So this being only the 2nd issue, I would suggest if you have any interest in kind of found power as opposed to, getting powers through, experiments or whatnot, this is basically a power that's sort of finding you, kind of like Abensur, kind of like, there are lots of superhero stories that have this particular conceit or this trope. But if you're interested in that, this might be something you may want to look at. And that's it for me.
If you read the events of Death of Superman and remember what came out of that and who came out of that, you might also appreciate it. Because that's pretty much what I'm going for with this, or what I'm getting out of this. And I haven't read this issue yet, but I feel relatively confident about that by how things have been going. All right, so folks, I don't have that many to go on. Oh, and shout out to I don't suspect that this is going to be his click of the week, so I'm just going to circle back to the Dave Marquez Rom Space Knight variant cover of Captain Marvel, just to tease and tempt Agent 70 a little bit more with that. Before I say, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures Continued number 9 is my first book. The story by Eric Burnham, art by Dan Schoening, and colors by Luis Antonio Delgado, and letters by Ed Duchar. I have those flipped for some reason. So this is, of course, set in the world of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series of the 80s. And it shows all the way around because there's, a lot of the telltale signs of that, such as kind of fourth wall breaking. Well, there's actually more of that now that I think about it, because can't remember how much of that was in the show. Callbacks to characters that you probably only saw once and or twice during the whole run or something, and hijinks ensuing. And in certain cases, and in this particular case, time travel, because this issue starts another time traveling adventure for at least one of the turtles so far, because of a thing Shredder has had in his possession that was of course starting this whole thing off, as adventures of this ilk tend to do. So yeah, still fun goings in this thing. I am looking forward to something that was thought of or that was mentioned in the back of this book as opposed to this particular book, but I've been enjoying reading it nonetheless. Speaking of enjoyable reads, Transformers number 4 is my next book. Written and the art is by Daniel Warren Johnson. Color is by Mike Spicer. And letters by Russ Wooten, which is actually reminding me of something that I thought I put in the news for later on about this book, but I'll have to look it up again. Either way, this book continues to fire on all cylinders. As I just said to someone on Twitter, and I probably have said to myself in the past, it feels like Daniel Warren Johnson is kind of writing out some of his childhood fantasies during the course of this book, because there's just some pretty pretty amazing stuff that has happened to each issue. That if you are a fan of the original cartoon of the Transformers, kind of goes part ways with it in the first issue. Like, some of the things are still there, but it just goes away from that very, very quickly. Which may put off some people, but hey, look, it's comic books. Everything can't be the same thing, otherwise it gets boring. But this book is anything but boring, and has been these 4 issues, which I'm continuing to enjoy. In this particular issue, there continues to be some Autobot Decepticon scrappings going on, as one or both sides are badly damaged. There is a use of an item that I was not expecting to happen this early on in the book, but I assume there's a reason for that. There are some characters that you would probably expect to see that we have not seen yet, for the most part, except for there is a tease of one. Well, there is another tease of one. Actually, not even a tease. But one gets brought up at the end of this book. For what reason, we don't know the status of, because of what has gone on in this issue. And I'm looking forward to finding out what, all the way around. But I like the way this book is kind of going on. Like I said, it is definitely different from what is known, but it's clear that the writer, has a fondness of that old material and was been wanting to play with it a good bit. So it is so far appreciated. Last book for myself is Blade number 7. Excuse me. Here we go. Written by Brian Hill, former guest of the show. Arts by Valentina Pienti. Color artist KJ Diaz, and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. So, one, we have another guest star in this in this particular book, and that is one Incredible Hulk, aka Bruce Banner, who also shows up in this book for a reason. Normally you would expect there to be a team up when such things like that happen, and we kind of sort of get one. And the reason why these two have come together may kind of have some sort of play on Blade's mission. I can't remember, 1870, were you planning on reading this at some point? I think you were, but I don't know. I think it was...
I've fallen behind.
Right.
Oh, you feel free, because at the end of the day, if you spoil it now, I probably won't remember it by the time I get to it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to. I mean, it does really nothing, because like the books read fairly breezy. Like it doesn't really take much of my, and that's not saying that's a bad thing, but it's just that, I think this book is kind of a little bit more action than exposition, but there is still some kind of in there and out there. And this is kind of one of those where it's kind of like, yeah, we get a little bit of both in here. For a reason, before going into the rest of the story. But it was a good read, quite breezy. Wasn't quite the team up in the way that you would think it was, but with what was the reasons why these two came together, I guess kind of makes sense. I have not been keeping up with the Hulk book And there was a footnote alluding to the what could be going on there, but like I said, I'm not entirely sure what is going on there. And just like Agent 70, the last time I've seen the Hulk was She-Hulk, of which we've already talked about. So, but no mention of that for obvious reasons, because there's no need to. We don't even know what time when this takes place in relations to that either way. But like I said, pretty good breezy read, and like I said, good stuff still for what it was. And that, folks, is it for me. Kliqs of the week.
Kliqs of the week.
Do you have yours?
Yeah, mine's pretty clear cut. I'm going to go with Ultimate Spider-Man #1.
Yeah,
because I got a good feeling reading it, and I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah, you were definitely teetering on that while we were talking about it, and while you were talking about it earlier. So that it makes sense. So as I pulled up that book for him, there was some stuff neither one of us got to that I'm kind of curious about. But hey, if they were worth going into some point down the road, maybe it will happen, but probably not. I feel like I probably already have mine, and it's probably apparent. But I do definitely still want to give a shout out to like Rise of the Powers of X, and in some part She-Hulk. For being what they were. But excuse me, folks, I am definitely going to go with, and there we go, Transformers #4, which
I knew it.
Yeah,
I was about to hit a Transformer sound effect just to tease it.
Yeah, you kind of knew. It's definitely apparent. The books continues to be pretty great. This variant cover that it shows up, I mean, that is on the screen for folks watching the video version, harkens back to a notable scene in the movie. So that was a nice touch there. And with that, folks, we're going to push on to the news, but first let's get an ad read.
Alrighty, our first ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to cabernet to torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel any time. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today. And now we get into the news. Parker! Sorry.
Yes, that was great. Here we go. Sorry, I'm adding a piece of news before I before I transition over to that. So there we go. There we go. All right, cinematic news, folks. As we do about this time, Miss Marvel star Iman Vellani teases major role in upcoming Marvel Zombies series. So, a series that I personally don't believe should exist, but here we are. Apparently, Iman Vellani and her character Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, is going to be in that show. Let's see. Quote, "We've done the whole thing. It's amazing. It was so much fun, and there are a lot of cool characters in the Marvel Zombie show." Which was a quote from Miss Vellani. So there you go. Next up.
Alrighty, the Marvels is heading to a home video release starting next week on January 16th, when it will release digitally ahead of a physical home release next month. So now what we mean by digitally is digital streaming, pay-per-view, and video on demand. So that's what we mean by that. It is not yet known when this will hit Disney Plus, but if you have not seen Marvels yet, and we both recommend that you do go see it or see it at home, you can now see it digitally at home on January 16th. The physical disc release will occur later on February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day.
Indeed. I thought they did say when it was going to hit Disney Plus, but I guess not. Anyway, Marvel Studios executive confirms Daredevil and Netflix shows are MCU canon. Which, okay. There are some folks amongst the crowd who have already set that wheel in motion and don't care what the powers that be says. But it seems as though what is this person's name? Brad Winderbaum says that let's see, there was an interview with Screen Rant, who was asked how Charlie Cox's original Daredevil might factor into Echo as far as being canon. And there's a quote here saying that I can say that up to this point, we've been a little cagey about what's the sacred timeline, what's not sacred timeline. Winderbaum says that was born, frankly, of a period at the studio where we were like, we have to stick the landing with the vendors. It was another part of the company developing the Netflix stuff. Talking about the old Netflix stuff. But basically goes on to say that we were aware of what they were doing. They were aware of what we're doing, but it was a lot to balance. But basically, he says that this person basically says, like, yeah, they thought of the Netflix stuff as canon. So, long story short. Sure. Next up.
Alrighty, so there's a fun new trailer out for Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur Season 2. Good for this show. I have been unable to actually finish the first season, but I did watch a few episodes and I liked what I saw.
Yeah, it was fun.
So obviously this is based on the Marvel comics, and let's see here. The new season is set to premiere on the Disney Channel on Friday, February 2nd. The next day it will pop up on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I also didn't actually finish the first, because there was a one point in time they only had like a half of the season up, and then they ended up putting the other half up,
right?
And just never got back to it because there was other stuff. So, but that's cool. By the way, folks, if you're interested, that Halo Season 2 also had a trailer, which has little to do with little, but I'm just saying that anyway because I didn't put it in the thing. Barbie's America Ferrera, joins the MCU universe with What If role. And if you saw the teaser trailer for Season 3, you saw Scott Lang. Excuse me, no, it wasn't even Scott Lang. It was Kurt from whose last name I can't remember. No, it wasn't even Kurt. It was Red Guardian. I'm sorry. It was David Harbour.
I was about to say, what are you talking about? The What If Season 3, or the other? It's What If Season 3 or What If Season 2 Part 2?
No, this is Season 3.
Season 3, right? It's Season 3. So it's the Winter Soldier and Red Guardian.
Right. No, because the character. When I watched it, I know it's a Red Guardian now but I'm going through these things because I was totally blanking. But regardless, the character came off as those people I mentioned.
Right. Okay. I get that.
And that's why I said, but it was like, no, that was Red Guardian. But regardless, and there's another character that shows up who's called Ranger Morales. And that is who America Ferrera is going to play. And we did get some voice work from her in that sneak peek as well. And I guess that's where this is coming from. So there you go. Next up.
All right. Marvel Studios executive Brad Winderbaum opens up about Eyes of Wakanda, the upcoming Black Panther animated series set to hit Disney Plus sometime in 2024. So we learn more in this interview with comicbook.com, which was done to promote Echo. And let's see here. He's not able to say too much about it, only that people do not see it coming. Okay.
Did you ever see it coming? I want to go back to the last article real quick because I just noticed something that was said.
Go ahead.
The person that was being talked to in that article was AC Bradley, who was, I believe, the writer and showrunner for season 1 and 2 of What If. And I don't know if this was news or not, but or if we talked about it or not, but apparently they are no longer with that show and with and working on Marvel projects, because they say that in this article, and it does link to an article from the 31st. Okay, yeah, so I must have missed this article from then. So yeah, so AC Bradley, who, like I said, was the showrunner and one of the writers on the show, on the for the first couple of seasons, is no longer with the What If show.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Interestingly,
what's that?
They refer to America Ferrera as from Barbie and not as Ugly Betty.
Yes. Which, you know how that goes. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny also. Next up, though. Hey, guess what, folks? You probably heard the rumbling, the millions of voices crying out in glee for this. But The Mandalorian and Grogu are getting a movie.
I thought we knew this, but then I realized that I was mistaking this for what my understanding was, which is that there was going to be whatchamacallit? What's that blue guy's name?
Oh, Thrawn?
Yeah. Yes. That they were going to be part of the Thrawn movie. So when I heard this, I was like, is this the Thrawn movie? But I guess not.
No, this is probably that lead up to that, though.
Right.
So, and I feel like even if it wasn't known that this was a thing, I can't say, when I saw this, I was like, wait, like you, I was like, wait, this was not already a thing?
Right.
But even if it wasn't inevitable one way or the other, or at least it felt like it was going to be another season of Mando or something, another movie. So, leading up to. So not surprising, but still welcome, I would say. Next up, though.
Ahsoka season 2 is officially in development. So yay, it's official. Season 2 of Ahsoka's in development. Disney confirmed the news Tuesday morning while announcing that Jon Favreau will be directing that previous movie we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. I'm glad. I mean, listen, I struggled with some parts of the Ahsoka show.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have a thing for Natasha Liu Bordizzo, though, so I'd like to see more of her. Very much so.
And Rosario Dawson. That's not, no slap stereo, but
no, not at all. Not at all.
But yes, I feel like even when we talked about it at the end of that season, while we weren't sure if there was going to be anything coming out of it, such as this, or whether they were just going to, just kind of bop her in with whatever that Infinity War-esque Thrawn thing is going to be. It felt like something was coming, but we weren't sure much. I feel like I don't know if we even said as much as whether there could have even been a season 2, but it probably should have been the way with the ended with that. So it's coming, folks. There you go. Next up, though, American Born Chinese is canceled at Disney Plus after 1 season. So I still had not yet to watch that.
I watched a few episodes and I kind of understand why it got canceled, because it was kind of tough to watch, but it's also not addressed to myself. I am not the target demographic. So, while I am part of the target demographic, I'm not the exact target demographic. And it was just a little tough to listen to. much less watch. But I think it definitely skews young, and for obvious reasons, that's a good thing. But at the same time, I just found it, kind of tough to watch. I found the adaptation, like what they did to adapt it, a little tough to watch. But I'm going to try to watch it all the way through, and apparently they're trying to shop it to other outlets.
Right, which tends to happen in these cases with things like this, especially fan wise. What was I gonna say? So I guess it is worth noting this probably still falls under the realm of a report, because according to this article it says, according to individual with knowledge of the decision. So this doesn't sound like something that came from Disney on high officially.
Right.
So take that for what it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the case. Monarch Legacy of Monsters New Titans were inspired by the weird freakiness of nature, according to this article. Yeah, we really won't go into too much of it, but I feel like we had a similar article to this previously. But I put this in here because there's some interesting think piece bits about that show. Which, hey, if you're a fan of Godzilla, you should watch. It's pretty good. If you have the means to, I should say. Or those 3 magic letters. Next up.
3 are the magic letters. Anyway. Shout out to Dale, all right?
Indeed.
So there is a new feature, Godzilla x Kong, that teases Kong's fight to be king. So this is a new feature on Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. And this is produced by Total Film. It is.
That sounds right. Yes. That is a site.
Yeah. No, I just read it, but then I scrolled. I'm like, where was that in this? I thought I could have sworn. Oh, it's like further down.
Yeah. You know how they like to hit you with walls of text before they get to the point.
Yeah. So so this is in advance of the movie being in theaters, not on April 12th, but is it like March 29th or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, because they recently updated the release date. Moved it up because they need more movies, to make money in theaters.
Indeed. And I guess Kong just can't wait to be king.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all know who the actual king of the monsters is. It's never going to be King Kong.
Yeah. Also, for those who knew that reference, I was in reference to, congrats, I guess.
Yeah, right. Everything. I was gonna say there was another reference to that same movie in Echo. Everything the sun touches.
Yes. Oh, forgot about that. Yes. Because I was like, really? But I was like, okay. Yeah, that was pretty good. And I was like, all right, you just threw that in there. That was out of nowhere. But anyway, next up we go over into the anime corner.
No.
Mute.
Yes. Wait, is this you or me? I totally.
It's all right. You can do it. I did the one with the fight to be king.
Yes, that's good because I got something to say about this one. Solo Leveling episode 1 is release date and time. Well, at the time of recording this, it is out. Go watch it. So I've been hyping this show up for probably since it was announced like sometime last year. The first episode does not disappoint. If you know anything about the manga, of which I'm still kind of reading, but I think this thing is probably going to catch up with me sooner rather than later. It's really not that long of a manga anyway. Regardless, it was pretty good. It was a pretty good episode 1, I would say. It beats that it needed to. Probably added some stuff that I don't think that I've seen in the manga at this point. But I enjoyed it. So I don't you know what? I'm not even going to go because I was going to go into what the show is about, but I figure like, you know, if you are an anime watcher, you probably already know. Just know that there is some definitely anime troublish things that happen in video games. Actually, play a big, huge part of this. Some of the trips that's go on in here. So enjoyable. Next up.
So, in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of the anime Samurai Champloo, streaming of its soundtrack music began on various music streaming services and major download sites worldwide, such as Spotify, iTunes Store, Record Choku, and more, on January 8th, 2024. So that's pretty cool. I did not realize that had been added to Spotify. I'm going to take a look at that after the show.
Yes. That the soundtrack's pretty great. Wait, you've seen the show, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I thought you had.
I crossed that off my list.
I thought so. So, but yeah,
it's only 26 episodes, which is right. Definitely an enticement when it comes to watching stuff, looking at you, One Piece.
Right. Well, and done by the same people, the same folks who what did Cowboy Bebop, and with the same level of quality, even though different. I think even down to the music. Now that I think about it, no, I mean the music's kind of different in spots because of the Nijabes, all over it. But regardless, still good stuff. So yeah, obviously, when I saw this, I was like, well, gotta go ahead and hit the title. The title theme song, which was already out there anyway, in places if you know who the artist was. So good stuff. Next up though, Street Fighter 6 and Spy Family Code White collaboration is available now. Let's see. The collaboration will be available from January 9th to January 31st of 2024, and it consists of hairstyles, and the costumes for Yor Forger and Lloyd Forger, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't remember if there's anything else in here because I don't see it. But regardless, if you play Street Fighter 6 and you go to the store, what sells the stuff, the avatar stuff, you will go get that. Actually, it says here, yeah. All players who log in during the collaboration period will receive special items like photo frames, stamps, and titles. And like I said, the other stuff is still the other stuff. But no, I don't see a price on the stuff, but you can figure that out for yourself. Next up.
So this is only available for a few weeks?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a limited time. It's just like the Turtles thing from last year. It's like a limited time collaboration thing. Like once you buy it, it's yours. But if you don't get it, I mean, unless they plan on bringing it up at some point in the future, which I doubt.
Got it. What's
going on there?
So I was about to say, so is it time to get a PlayStation 5? I kid. Next up, after 5 years, NCSoft officially grants a license to popular City of Heroes private server Homecoming. Quote, your accounts and characters are safe.
It's a trap.
Apparently, this is something that Roddykat should talk about because this is like, very much foreign territory to me.
Yes. So City of Heroes was an MMO from like back in the mid-20s. I was about to say the mid-20s. Like
the mid-teens?
Yeah. Teens, yes, definitely. But I think it was before the teens, if I'm not mistaken.
More like the aughts. Okay.
Yeah, I think that is the case. Actually, I vaguely. It was actually one of my first actually I think it was my first MMO, and it is superhero based if you did not know. So you go in there, you make a superhero, you patrol streets and do MMO things as the superhero of your making, or villain, because they ended up having an expansion that was more villain focused. Well, the MC Soft, who is the owner of the license of it, shut up the game after a while, and some enterprising fans ended up making getting the source code and making their own private servers. And up until now, they were just kind of operating on the low, even though a lot of people still knew about it, from then. So this is kind of huge, that the fact that NCSoft kind of basically gave their blessings with this license for them to kind of keep doing, even though they were doing it anyway, because they could have just said, all right, no, kill all of that and, stop what you're doing and kill all the servers, but they never did. So this is cool. So they can now just kind of keep going, as they have been. Now they do operate like it's a free MMO, but they do take donations. So if you are, and that's kind of what's been kind of keeping them going. I assume this license may or may not help with that. That they granted to them, but nevertheless, it was a great MMO, and it kind of still is. Like, a matter of fact, when I saw this news, I kind of popped back in on there to kind of see, what was going on, and it was still kind of hopping, then with what they had. So, like I said, if you're looking for a pretty good MMO that is superhero based, this you can't go wrong with this one. Champions Online was the one that came after this by NCSoft, and I know there are people that are probably still playing that one because it was kind of an offshoot of the code, and it is still going, but it's not. Well, I think Cryptic has to do with that, but it's still the same people. But City of Heroes was and/or is still the one for this. Next up, though, Star Trek Online, speaking of other MMOs, has a new game update. It's called Both Worlds, and it unleashes the Borg King as opposed to the Borg Queen. It will launch on January 23rd on PC and March 12th for the PlayStation Xbox, continuing the multiverse story against the Borg King. And it's also 14 years old. And this is also another game made by basically the same people who some of the, I think there's shared lineage with the people that's doing this and the last game that I mentioned, City of Heroes, let's just say. I think Cryptic was in both of them. Regardless, if the name wasn't, didn't tell you anything, Star Trek Online is Star Trek. You go around doing Star Trek things in an MMO. And there are ships and things and missions and all that kind of good jazz. And they've even kind of brought in stuff from shows and whatnot, that you can buy and run around and whatnot. But they've been pretty steadily updating and even getting some cast members of various Star Trek shows and projects in the mix. And I believe the latest one has Garrett Wang, which I think he probably had been a part of it before, but I can't remember. But this particular new update has Nicole DeBoer, which is Exri Dax from DS9, the aforementioned Garrett Wang, Harry Kim, and some other folks that are around. So that's cool. Yeah, I hadn't heard Esri, heard or seen Esri in a minute, except for on Pluto TV. Regardless, that's the thing. Like I said, that's the thing that is coming. If you're so inclined, hey, check it out. Next up,
Microsoft has set a date for its next gaming showcase. Its second developer direct event will include more details on Avowed, Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, and strategy title Ara, History Untold. Apparently, most intriguingly, though, is Machine Games will at long last reveal details about its Indiana Jones game 3 years after the project was first announced. The Wolfenstein Studio will offer up over 10 minutes of game and developer insights along with the first gameplay trailer. We're all going to learn about the story and setting and find out just how you'll control the legendary archaeologist. I have one thing to say, is that, Indy, I'm so glad you're not dead.
Yes, indeed. And I was about to say shout out to Lucasfilm, but no, we're not gonna do that because they gave up on that a while ago with their video game stuff. But that's another time for another film. I'm kind of looking forward to this because I remember seeing the tease for this and it looked promising. Next up, though, you can build the monitor with McFarlane's. Well, we're going into Tour Corner, by the way, with McFarlane's store exclusive DC Wave, which includes we got a Superman. We have who the heck is these people? We got a Superman, a Flash. We got the Spectre.
That's a Wally West Kid
yes,
Flash.
That's correct. Psycho Pirate, the Spectre, and Superman of Earth 2.
Right, which is why he looks like he's so constipated.
Yes. If you're watching the video version, you can see said figures all in a row as I scroll through the rest of it. And yeah, there you go.
It hurts me to see just, you know, rough renditions of characters that I grew up loving, like Wally West Kid Flash, because I've been, you know, I've been itching to build my own, like, Wolfman Perez New Teen Titans, and this would, you know, he would be one of the members from that era in this costume, and I'm just not a fan of the sculpt. I'm not a fan of the way this figure looks. Just not.
Gotcha. Well, if you are a fan of the sculpt, the 4-figure package deal. Oh wait, it says there's a 4-figure package deal that is available, but separately they are $40 a piece. Looks like. So there you go. Next up.
Dang, $40. Dang. Because it's exclusive to their online store.
Right.
Oh, lame.
Well, you know.
Anyway.
Dollar bill, y'all.
Seriously. All right. Marvel releases the Murder World That Time Forgot adventure for Demiplane. So this is for the role-playing game.
Right. So 8-7 and I talked about this after the show last week. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up, because this came out last December as a thing. If you are a part of Marvel Unlimited, you probably would have gotten an email stating that there's a code for this, for a digital copy of this adventure that you can redeem at Demiplane for that. Now, the caveat is that, well, you would have to use it with Roll20 and Demiplane. If you're already in one or both of those, then you're already good. And or would probably need the base game to kind of to mess with, I think. You can definitely read it. If not, because that's what I kind of took a gander at it after I redeemed my code. So there is that. But yeah. That's the thing. If you want more content for that RPG, which I've not seen anybody run through yet, with the exception of one thing that I've seen, but I've never seen anybody else doing any run a campaign for it, which I would love to see and or be involved with. Anyway, next up. Oops, come on. Marvel Legends Crystar figure review. Yeah, there you go. Crystar, a character
that you never thought you'd see a Marvel Legend of. Let's put it that way.
Yes, that's the nice way of saying that. Yes. But this article pretty much goes through what all comes with the figure, some shots here and there with all the accoutrement. And yeah, there is that character if you are so interested. Do we have a price here? But it's probably the Marvel Legends price. So probably like what, 30? I mean 25. I think that's usually the going rate, between 25 and 30 for these. Yeah, it doesn't say it. Regardless, there you go. Next up.
No. It's usually 25.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Usually $24.99. Now you're gonna make me take a look.
Yeah.
Scrolling. Get them doggies scrolling. This is a figure review though, so it's
Right.
not surprising that it would be like buried in, forget the text, just buried somewhere.
Yeah.
Amazingly though, they really like this figure.
Yeah, I didn't really read through it. I just thought I'll just bring it up anyway.
Listen, all we ever knew about Chris Star was that he was in those advertisements in the comics.
True. It's true.
You know, I never read a Chris Star book, so it was very
Neither
interesting
did I.
that they did the Marvel Legend of it.
Right. Some would argue scraping the bottom of the barrel. I feel like a one William Bruce West would say something like that. I'm not going to speak for him saying that he did.
Right.
But,
Right.
But if he had, that sounds like something he would say about a character like that.
Yeah, definitely. Next up, Marvel has announced that the X-Men will appear in their first post-Krakoa story on Free Comic Book Day later this year in 2024. A press release from Marvel teases the aftermath of the X-Men's current story, the Fall of X crossover. And so it's going to be split between Blood Hunt, which is that big Blade story, and X-Men #1.
Right. And as we found out fairly recently, X-Men #1 proper will be in July.
Right.
So yeah, there you go. Look forward to seeing that on Free Comic Book Day in May. Rhyming and didn't know it. Anyway, G.I. Joe officially introduces a major villain to new canon with a blood-soaked massacre. Technically, this has kind of been already out there, but I guess they're finally realizing this is the case. So yeah, if you read the Duke book recently, and I'm pretty sure the preview of they might have even had it in the back of Transformers. Now that I think about it, but yeah, Cobra Commander, who's next up to get a book. Has a few preview pages, and it's they're definitely going away from the cartoon version in a certain way with the level of violence. But this article kind of talks about Duke, what happens in Duke 1, and a couple of things that I've mentioned when I talked about that book when we talked about it, about a week or two ago. Actually, I think it was that last week? I think it was last week. Regardless. Or it was either a week, either 2 weeks ago. Regardless, I talked about it, and yeah, that stuff's coming. I'm still looking forward to it. Speaking of, Skybound releases first look at Transformers in G.I. Joe crossover, which also technically is a thing that's kind of already happened, but not in the sense that what we traditionally have known of their crossovers with an event book. And this, I guess, is spoilers for Duke 2, which is going to be on sale in a couple of weeks. So I guess there's going to be a little bit more in the tying together of the two franchises in that particular book. Because in Transformers 4, there was nothing, but we did see Duke in Transformers 3, spoiler alert, which, came before his book came out. So, next up.
So apparently Power Rangers reveals the final fate of a beloved Omega Ranger. Okay.
There's a lot been going on in that thing that I've not been keeping up with.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. So this is spoilers for Rangers Academy #3. So apparently the 4th Omega Blue Ranger is destined to lead a life beyond just being one of the Power Rangers in the future. Yale is the feline-esque alien, blah, 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 blah. And they go on to continue living on as... trying to figure it out. Scrolling. Oh, okay. So becomes a faculty member, a teacher. Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like there's been a Power Ranger series where at the end of it there was a Ranger that pretty much went off to do something else other than that. So In fact, there was, because I just saw it recently. Anyway, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book license renewed by IDW, between IDW and Paramount. According to this Hollywood Reporter article, the deal will allow the publisher to release a number of projects tied to the 40th anniversary of the Turtles. So, yay, that is including the upcoming Last Ronin 2 Re-Evolution sequel to The Last Ronin, which I could have sworn had already started. It's just on that weird bi-monthly timeline that the last book did. And it says here that a new installment of that is coming March 6th. So that seems about right for that. Quote, we are delighted to continue our relationship with IDW Publishing for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics and graphics, according to some bigwig. After 40 years, there are still so many stories to be told, and we can't wait for everyone to see what's next, aka, oh God, we have property we can actually make some money off of. That is my cynical view of it. That is not theirs, I'm sure, but I'm just saying. Next up.
All right, so we can take a look now at this article over at AIPTcomics.com with an exclusive first look of TMNT, The Last Ronin 2, Re-Evolution number 2 over at IDW. Speaking of that previous article, this book will come out on or around May 1st, as Roddykat mentioned, that bi-monthly schedule in order to give them time to, complete production on the book, I guess. And you can take a look at these covers, scrolling through the article.
Actually, it's more than that, because the first issue comes out on February 28th. So but the last book did that
March,
same thing.
April, I was going to say, March, April, so it's a little bit more than 2 months. It's like 2 months plus.
Right. Like I said, the last book did that too, where it was like, okay, it was a long stretches in between issues to where you almost forget what happened in the things, but, sure. Nightwing officially debuts his new animal transformation, and it's the perfect choice, according to this Screen Rat article. I guess spoiler alert for Titans number 6, which was what, last week? This week? Whatever.
Say
Titans number 6.
that was last week, because the miniseries came out this week.
Right.
I remember. I talked about this.
Yeah. So yeah, he transforms into a fox. So I guess that says something about what people think of Nightwing. Next up,
Thundercats are on pre-sales. Thundercats are loose. Nice. Thundercats number 1 has over 100,000 pre-sales. And this is the upcoming comic from Dynamite Entertainment. And it is apparently a very highly anticipated comic of 2024. So yeah, over 100,000 copies ordered ahead of the final order cutoff date.
I'm not gonna lie, I've said it when we talked about it last year that this was going to be a thing. I'm kind of looking forward to this. It's Declan Shalvey and Drew Moss, and Declan Shalvey did Time Before Time, previously, and he's done a couple of things, but that's the one I read from him. So, and also, he's not formed because he still draws, right? He still does art in places, right?
Say again?
Declan Shalvey, he still does art in places.
I haven't seen anything. Maybe covers.
Yeah, maybe.
No interiors. I've seen covers.
Right. Because he's doing his own stuff now.
Really shifted, right. He's really shifted over to doing his own stuff, writing also.
Right. So, and Time Before Time just finished. So, I guess this was like, well, you got this coming up. So there you go. But yeah, looking forward to this because, Thundercats are go. Or something or a lot. Something to that apparent.
They're on the loose.
There you go. That's what I meant to say.
And on pre-sale.
Indeed. Wait, do we have a date? We do have a date, right?
A release date?
February 7th.
Let's see.
Yeah, February. Thundercats 1 will arrive February 7th, 2024.
There it is.
Last but not least, going back to the Transformers, Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers adds a new artist for the next story arc, which I suspect this was an inevitable thing to happen because, doing the writing and the art, kind of weighs on a person at a while. As far as I would not know, but sometimes one tends to suffer over the other from what I've seen in readings, books like that. Regardless, Skybound and Hasbro announced that starting with April's issue 7, George Corona will be taking over art duties while Johnson will continue to write the series. Skybound has also revealed Corona's variant cover for Transformers #7, featuring Optimus Prime flanked by his fellow Autobots, which, if you're watching the video version, you can see right there. If you're watching the video version, and everyone else that that is on the creative team, Mike Spicer doing colors and variant covers by folks, are still going to be the thing. So cool. Yeah, no, we won't go any further. That's it, folks. That is the end of our news section. Let's get one last ad read in.
Our last ad read of the night. You know what we read when it's late and we're tired. Help us keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the cspn.us page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or Marvel Legends. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, specifically through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
All right, folks. Let me do this. There we go. And that finger that. And say that folks, we'll be back next week. As far as I know, same bat time, same bat channel that we can think of. Either way, we will.
Yes, we won't have any interruptions in our schedule until the week after.
Right.
And we'll let you know more about that next week as our schedules become clearer. But I know for sure that my personal schedule has been updated, and it won't be next week, but the week after that will be slightly different.
Indeed. And with that, you can check us out on our socials to kind of keep abreast of that. I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNerdNeed on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. PC_Dirt on Twitter, PopCultureNet on Twitter, PopCultureNetwork.com is on his umbrella sites therein. He could be on Threads. I don't even know. Also, Tim DOGG98, who probably is also on Threads at this point. I don't know, because I ain't there. But you can find them at Tim DOGG98 on Twitter. You can find them at CB Cron on Twitter. You can find them at The Kliq Nation on Twitter, thekliqnation.com. And you can definitely find him over at comicbook.com, where he's over there writing his face off. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal Lizard Podcast Network, that's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast browser place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Lizard Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts.
There may be a YouTube feed also if I decide to pull the trigger on it, but I need to see a couple of things because you can do that now with apparently.
Okay.
So yeah, stay tuned for that if that happens. But you can definitely find us recording every Thursday night, 9:30 most times Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel of The Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/The Kliq and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, leave us all positive 5-star reviews, and hit that notification button so you know when we're on live.
Yeah, and shout out to the person that messaged a little while ago saying, "Hey guys, on YouTube.
What's up?
I just saw it, so my apologies if you're still around.
What's going on?
Yeah. With that, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
Almost over, y'all. I really stand. Lights out.